Hola, hola. Welcome to Dímelo with me, Claudia Pagan, where I talk to people in the sports world about their jobs, passions, and challenges. We have fun, we get personal, and sometimes it feels like a therapy session, but don't worry, it's only good fun. So, Delmy, not to put pressure on you, but you are my first interview.
No pressure. No pressure here.
Here we are, my first official guest. We're both women, we're both Latinas, we're both in the sports world, and there's challenges that we've had to face, but also I just want people to be able to listen to this and know what careers they could potentially have, what they can strive for in sports. So I think that you're one of the perfect people to do this with. Let's start off first with, what you currently do. You're in the communications department at Real Salt Lake. So tell me a little bit about your role, what you do on a day-to-day basis.
Yes, I am working PR with RSL as a coordinator slash manager. Been here for almost a year, which is wild. I'm about to hit my 1 year in about a month or two. I know it's crazy. Um, that question is so hard, right? Because it's like this every day. There's no the same day in this industry. It's always very different. But I guess some of the things that we do, obviously, press releases, managing interviews. Um, Building, maintaining relationships with media members, with the community, um, with the players. There's so much in
Yeah.
between there, but it's fun. It's such a fun job, and you really get to know people and tell their stories, which is ultimately like what I love the most about my job, being able to facilitate some of those connections and being able to tell some of their stories. But it's so fun. I love my job.
It is. It's funny because in my notes I have like ask her what's her day to day, but then underneath, as I was typing that, I'm like, okay, I know day to day looks different all the time. So like, do I ask this question because I know how it is? So give me kind of, let's say we're in the middle of a season, just to give people kind of an overview of what a week looks like for you. You've got a game day on Saturday. What's it the build up look like for you?
Okay, so normally we train probably 5 to 6 days a week. I'm at training. I'm basically wherever the guys are. If they're at training, I'm at training. Managing media afterwards. We do media availabilities pretty much in our case on a daily basis. We're pretty open about the access we give the media, so they can come down any day after the week. It's a lot of processing credentials, right, and arranging the press box, seating arrangements, lineups, getting all of that side, aspects ready for like a Saturday game. For like Fridays, normally what we would do, maybe like Apple calls with the Apple talent, calling our games on the weekend. Um, Game days, as you know, are a little hectic.
Chaotic.
Yeah, you're running all over the place. So a typical game day would be obviously come in early, get credential stuff set up, get press box ready for everyone. By that point, leading up to a game day, you already have interview requests from certain people. So it's just making sure timing wise you're very organized and have a certain person for a live hit at a certain time. And it's just nonstop. You have interviews, 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 game post game interviews, you have game recaps. And a big part of my job is obviously catering to the Latino community. So not only
Yeah.
are we doing everything in English, but we're also doing everything in Spanish. So it just kind of creates double the work. So I think people have this misconception that it's like, oh, you get to work games and like hang out and have a good time. And there's so much that goes into it. Getting game notes ready for the weekend, that's a
Yeah.
big one. It's just a lot of facilitating and communicating with many different departments to even make a game day happen. It's a lot that goes into
It
it.
It's interesting because like anyone in sports, when you say, "Hey, I work in sports," it's like, "Oh, you get to attend these games for free. You get to watch the games." Like, no, actually, half the time I don't even know what's going on the pitch because I'm focusing on other stuff. Like, even when I was filming games, like I would in my screen in the camera film, like I would follow the ball or follow a player, but I have no idea
Yeah,
what's going around.
yeah,
So people are like, "Oh, did you see that play?" I'm like, "No, I just saw it from like the feet of
yeah.
the player that I was filming. I have
Mhm.
no idea what happened."
Yeah, there's just a million things going on that your attention is not always in real time because you have a lot going on.
So in the podcast episode, I told Delmy before we got on here that I listened to the podcast interview that she did with the RSL show, which was great because I didn't want to ask you like repeated questions and I wanted to get a gauge of what you had talked about with them. And one thing that I absolutely loved, because I think you have such a good view. Obviously, you're the one in your role, but I think you have such a good view of the way that you view your role. Because I think from the outside, the way people might see you is, oh, she's just the liaison between the player and media, and just like say it like that. But I like the way that you put it. You're like, listen, we're facilitators. We're helping navigate the media and the players so that they can tell their stories to each other and so fans can listen and so fans can develop that relationship. And I think that's one of the biggest things, because I think that no matter how a team is doing on the pitch, if you're helping create that connection using the media to tell their stories, fans will still be coming to the games and still loving the team because they're building that relationship. So, can you talk to me more about how you like really view your role, because I think it's so important for people who are looking to get into your role to truly understand like how your role really is and the importance of your role.
Yeah, I mean, it's a lot of what you just said, right? For me, I really do view it as I am facilitating between the player and ultimately the fan. I mean, we all know they're athletes, right? But at the end of the day, they're also human. And
They
I think,
are.
yeah, and I think when I came in, that's one thing that I really have prided myself on. I've really made an effort to get to know our guys, not just the player, but really get to know their families, get to know their kids. Nothing makes me happier than coming to the stadium and having their kids just run to me and give me hugs. Like that, that's the kind of stuff that I love. So, in doing so and really building relationships with their entire family and with them, it's allowed me to know them more, to know their backgrounds, to know where they came from, to know their struggles, how they got here. And in turn, that makes it easier for me to pitch those stories, for me to facilitate, a reporter to come in and interview such player, and then they can kind of just elevate that coverage and put it out for the fans to read. And like you said, it builds this connection. Now they're not just a player, but there's someone that I
Yeah.
can relate to. There's someone that has
Yeah.
also been through struggles. There's someone who have also worked hard to get to where they are. Maybe you have a dream of becoming an athlete as well, and kind of hearing their background stories makes someone out there think, okay, if they can do it, I can do it. So that part of it is something that I've tried to really just grow and build upon. And I feel like for this year's one of the things that excites me more, because now I know them a lot better. Like last season, I was very new, new girl from the group, all of the group. And now it's like, okay, I know them a lot more, their families. Like I know what things they want to talk about, what things they want to get out there. Um, and that's for me, that's so fun. Ultimately, like I told you earlier, right? That's what I want to do. I just want to tell their stories out there. So that part of it like makes me so happy. And I'm also just like a big people person. So that to me is so fun. It's so fun getting to talk to other people and help, like I said, tell those stories. So it's definitely, I'd say, probably like one of my favorite parts of my job and my role.
I love hearing you talk about your role and your job, because I heard it when you did the other podcast as well in the RSL show. Just the way that you speak about your job, it makes me so happy. And now I actually get to like ask you and see the way that you smile, because like I would be able to tell if you weren't happy in your job. I'd be able to like see it in your face and hear it in your voice. And it's the exact opposite. Like you love it. And I see you posting on social media all the time with all the other women. It seems like you guys have so many women over there in RSL, which is incredible. Um, how did you get to this point where you've found a career that you really love? Because let me say, when I was looking you up, I saw that you also tried on camera reporting as well. So you have always, it seems like you've always known that you want to be in sports, but you've been figuring out like maybe different avenues for you to stay in the sports world. So how did you get to where you are right now in a career that you absolutely love?
This is a long story. Do you want the long version or do you want the short version? Because that's the so I did go to school for broadcasting. Like my dream was I want to be a reporter, and but at the time I wanted to be an entertainment reporter. So I did that for like 6, 7 years. Worked at TV Guide for a while. Did entertainment. realized I hated it, and I've always been a sports fan. My dad would take us to games as kids, so I feel like sports was always very much a part of me. Talk about power of social media. I think one day I was just tweeting out like a Laker game or something and got connected to someone, and that's kind of how I got my first job, my first on-camera job in sports, in the sports world. Covered NBA, I've covered NHL, I've covered pretty much WNBA, I've covered everything. Yeah, and then an opportunity to get into the soccer world kind of landed on my lap, with the LA Galaxy. Did that for a while, and I loved it. I loved it. And I'd say probably in the last 2 years that I was doing it, I started to get a lot more opportunities freelancing for MLS, doing stuff with their TikTok and social media. And it was so fun for me, but I always had like a little, just curiosity about the PR world. I think for a while I've heard from plenty of people of like, think about it, maybe PR would be like a good move, like personality wise, you'd be like great, X, Y, and Z. And it had been maybe a number of years where I've inquired, different people like, what is it like? I've always been very curious. Um, and I've always said if I was moving for a job, it'd be Utah because I've always loved the outdoors and the national parks. I'm like, it would be Utah. And then somewhere in there, I saw that they had an open position. I don't think that I was necessarily qualified on paper because all of my experience did come from on camera, very different. But I knew I really wanted the job. I knew I really wanted the position. I always said Utah, I felt like it was meant to be. I got it in my head. This is meant to be PR, Utah soccer. Like, what else could I want? I applied and then I found my boss on Twitter. I feel so bad for him because then I bugged him and I was like, "Hey Trey, like I've applied, like I know maybe I don't qualify, but this is why I think I'd be great at the job. This is why I want the job." And then ultimately leading me here. But it was a number of years. I think I did maybe on camera reporting for like 7 years in sports before I officially made the move
Wow.
to PR. Yeah, yeah. So it's a big difference. It's obviously very different, but it sounds cheesy, but I really do feel like this position was like meant for me. Like it was
Oh,
my position to have. Yeah, I don't know. It's just like something in me that from the beginning when I saw the posting online, I was like, okay, this is something that I feel like I really, really want. And a year later, I'm here. Yeah, it's wild. It's wild. Yeah.
how did you know? Because I'm gonna keep referencing the podcast episode that I listened to because I mean, first of all, you can tell that you've done on camera reporting because you just carry yourself so well on camera. You're so good at interviews. Um, you had said that when you first moved to Utah that you were a bit hesitant, that you had said like, "I don't know if this was the right move for me," or something about getting settled in is what I believe you had said in that podcast. So I wanna know, like, how did you know this was the moment to take the next step in your career? Because it can be, I'm a person who hates change. I love and hate change. I know like change is necessary and you can't avoid it, but when things are going to change, even if it's the smallest thing, I'm like, I don't like this at all because we just get so comfortable in our comfort zone
Totally.
and it can really stop us from going after something that could really improve our life, or maybe it ends up falling short and we learn a life lesson. But how did you know that it was the right moment for you to take that next step? Because it can be so scary
Yeah.
to not only take a new job but to move.
I know. I know. I'm like you. I like comfort. It's like if things are going well, why,
Or change
move
it.
anything? Just keep everything the same. If it's working, why do that? But I think because I've always been like that in the sense of like jobs and, home, I felt like, okay, this is my time. I think I was in a much happier place in my life within myself where I felt like confident in betting on myself. You know what I mean? Like, I think maybe 2, 3 years ago, I was not willing to do that because yeah, fear is a big thing. It's scary. It's scary to move your entire life. You don't know anybody. You don't know the city. You don't know the place. You don't know if you're gonna fit in. Obviously, that's like a fear too. You want people to like you. You want to do a good job. There's just so many things that play into it. But I felt like if it was more of like now or never. I always said, Utah, this is a job, right? This is a job that you've been like wanting to pursue. It's right there. Why would I not jump on it? Not to say it wasn't scary. It was definitely scary. And I remember even leaving home. It was horrible. Like saying goodbye to my family and leaving my dogs. I had to leave my dogs behind at first.
No, that's the worst part
Oh, it
is
was
leaving the pet.
yeah, it was so, so bad, but I really think it did come down to, like, just confidence at that point of my life where I'm like, "I'm happy, I've done the work in myself in every aspect of my life, and I feel like right now I'm in a good place to know that I can go there and do something good." And that's really what I just kind of rolled with, just out of gut instinct, like, no, you got this. Like, you're fine. It is going to be scary. And I knew that. I knew that going into it, it would be a couple of tough months because it wasn't going to be easy. It's still a completely different transition. But I also knew that at the end of the day, it would be a dream job for me. And I think just keeping in mind the bigger picture kind of helped me stay focused in that regard. And now, it feels like home. It really does. So it's crazy what a little bit of time and a little bit of faith, can kind of do for your career and as a person, I guess.
Was there anything that brought that confidence within you that changed? Well, I mean, I'm not sure if something in your environment changed or something in your life changed for you to have that confidence. Like, yeah, I can do this. I can take the next step in my career. I don't know if there was anything that happened to you or that you did differently to have that confidence within yourself, because sometimes it really just is a mentality change, changing out of a,
Mm,
oh, I can't do this, like blah blah blah, blah. Like I've been putting off this podcast because I'm like, no, it's gonna fail. And then one day I was like, F this. Like,
yeah.
if it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out, but just try it.
Mhm.
Because what are you going to do? Get to 50 years from now and then be like, oh, like what could have been? Like, well, what
Yes.
changed in you to get that confidence?
I think it was kind of what you just said, just that mentality switch. I think despite what people think, I can be a very shy and reserved person. Like I think I'm good at putting off facade that I'm very outgoing and happily and bubbly all the time, but deep inside I'm very shy. And I think at some point I had to realize, okay, that's not going to work in this industry. Like not if you
Yeah.
want to go after what you want, right? And I think when I remember maybe what year was this? 2022. I think that that's kind of when my mentality started to shift and I started to realize, okay, you can't live like this. Like you really got to go out there and pursue what you want and not be afraid to network and put yourself out there. If someone doesn't like you, it's okay. You're not going to be everyone's cup of tea. It's just, reality.
That's
When I
exactly how it is.
made that switch, it's the year that MLS started to hire me for things. And I think that started to build my confidence into just my own person and feeling because this industry, it's a lot. You're constantly competing with other people and like 100 people want the same job. It's just a lot and you cannot help, especially as a woman, you can't help but compare yourself to others. It's just unfortunately part of the human nature in you. And I think once you start to kind of gain that confidence, I started to break out of my shell a little bit. You network more, you meet more people, you start to realize, okay, the world isn't as scary as you've played it out in your head. And I think all of that ultimately just kind of put me in a place where it's like, no, I got this. I got this. Like, I can walk into a room and feel like I belong in a room because I think that's also something that I struggled with a lot. Imposter syndrome, like feeling like
Oh,
why am I here? you know?
that happens to me all the time. Like when I've got to do some stuff where it's like covering soccer overall, and I'm sitting next to people who know everything about soccer. Like you could say like a year, and they're like, "Oh, the biggest game of this year was this," and I'm like, I have no idea. But it's like, no, like you belong. Like you wouldn't be given the opportunities if you didn't belong there. And I mean, like sometimes I don't want to use the word delusional, like being delusional, but it's like envision yourself in that spot, like
Yeah,
you deserve it. If it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out, but don't take yourself out of the picture before like you've even given
exactly.
yourself the chance or the opportunity to be there. So I love that. And I think first of all, like you need that confidence to take those steps to apply for that job that you think, oh, maybe I don't have the requirements, to then reach out to your potential boss, which I love that you did that because that was a nice extra touch.
Yeah,
Did
you
you,
know,
did,
I always
did he
joke.
ever,
I always joke. I bothered the crap out of him until he had no choice but to give me an interview. And
that's what I
hey, it worked out. I'm here. So
Yeah, that's what I say about my job. People are like, "Oh, how'd you get with DC United?" I was like, "Oh, well, I did an internship in 2016, stayed on as game day staff for 2 more years. They saw I wasn't going anywhere, so they were like, all right, let's just freaking hire this girl because
fine
she's
as
not leaving
well.
anywhere."
That's key. Just don't give them an option.
Exactly. Don't let them say no to you.
Exactly.
Show up. It's so important. But I will say though, like you could do all the right things to get yourself in the position and to get the job, but in order to keep the job, you do have to have the skills. And I have seen all the media stuff that you guys have been doing from RSL, like all the interviews. I think you guys had the head coach on CBS Sports
We
Golasso Network
did.
today,
Yes,
too,
we did.
which is so
Michelle.
exciting. And there's so many interviews that you guys are doing, which is so important. And a lot of that stems from you, from helping create that connection with the club and the media and getting those interviews. So I want to know, what is the recipe to success? You know, if someone's going to be successful in your job, for you to be successful in your job, like what are some really important things?
I think I don't know if this is gonna make sense to me. To me, in my head, it makes sense. I think genuinely caring. You know, like
Yeah.
people can tell when you're being authentic and when you're not. And it's not when I say networking, right? Like it is a big important step, but genuinely caring about the people, not just what they can help you with, what they can, help you out with, or whatever the case is, like actually caring about the person. Like I said, right? Like with players, I know they appreciate that we treat them like human beings, not just a player, like a transaction. Okay, I need you to jump on this and do this interview. No, like I genuinely care about their families and their girlfriends and their wives and the kiddos and all of that. And I think just being authentically you and actually caring about what you do goes a long way. Like for me, I care about my job so much, and I feel like that's what motivates me to just not be complacent. Like I'm constantly have a notebook somewhere here where I'm constantly just like writing ideas that pop in my head or things that I want to do. Trey gets sick of me because I'm constantly like, what do you think about this? Or what do you think about that? I genuinely care. And if you don't actually care about your job, I feel like that shows, that comes across to people.
Yeah.
So it sounds so simple, and it really is. It's just having a deep appreciation about your job. I know there's a million other people that would want my position, and I'm so grateful every day that it's me here. And I'm so passionate about it, and I care so much that I feel like just that alone is a huge advantage for someone.
But two things that I think, that I want to get into with your job that sound like that I've seen firsthand with the communications people here at DC, but also that I was hearing you talk about in the other podcast, is one thing to help make your job successful and make the club successful is your relationship with the players. And the second is, getting on top of that is first getting them to trust you, but then also, having them open up and be authentically themselves when they're in media. Because I've done interviews with players where they are like, they have an incredible personality. And then as soon as, even if I have a good relationship with them, as soon as we sit down and the cameras turn on, they get quiet. And and I'm like, where the heck did the banner go? Where did your personality go? Because that went out the window. Like
That is
you were just sitting there, like almost mute. What happened? And it is so difficult. Like that is not something that should be overlooked. So, like, I want to know, like, what's the key to building that relationship? I mean, like you've already been talking about it, is you have to be authentically yourself and show them like you care. How do you build that trust between you and the player so that they know that when you come to them for a media request or whatever it is, they know that you actually care and you're not just throwing them to the wolves?
Yeah, great question. I think with genuinely caring, consistency also plays a factor. If you are consistently there, consistently caring, consistently have their backs, and that's obviously something that not it didn't come overnight. I had to like really gain their trust, and that didn't happen right off the back. Obviously, part of my job is to protect them as people, as
Yeah.
players. And I think that's not something that you can just tell someone, hey, don't worry, you can trust me. You can't say that, right? Just like any other relationship, like that kind of comes with actions. And I like to think I've been very consistent with all of them. They know they can come to me with whatever they need. It could be media related, or honestly, sometimes it's completely not related at all. Just personal, maybe with kids, maybe just anything that they need. They know that they can come, and we're always going to respond to them and answer them. Or if we don't know something, I don't know, let me find out and I'll get back to you. Like just keeping
Yeah.
that open line of communication, I feel is huge for them. It's huge for them because sometimes we don't have answers. They want answers and we can't always give them answers. But they know, okay, she doesn't know, but she's gonna go and and find out. We've had players that have been very honest about maybe their experiences with the media in other countries, right? Like whether it's Colombia or Mexico. And that's something that I think, and maybe that's something as Latinos, like we can understand a little bit more because media in other Latin American countries is just very different. It's very different. So I think even that understanding of like, hey, I know what it's like. I totally understand it. I know it's going to take some time. Little by little, we'll get you out there. And then when you least expect it, you'll be fine and comfortable. Like we do have a couple of those situations. Um, and not to say everyone is out of 10 right now. There's a couple of people that probably still struggle a little bit, but I think it's just consistently working with them on it. Um, Making them comfortable as you can. It also helps when they know the person, right? So we're lucky in Utah, we have a few reporters that are around all the time, constantly. We make an effort to like, oh, you haven't met this person, introduce them, let them know they'll be around. I feel for those people, it's also an advantage because they see you often. They know your name, they're familiar, they trust your work, they've read your work, they know you're not going to do them wrong. And ultimately, I think that's all what plays part in like building that trust. But like I said, it doesn't come overnight. It doesn't come overnight.
No,
No.
it definitely doesn't. I'm in year like 6 with DC, and it's still, I mean, I have relationships with the players, especially the ones that have been there as long as I have. But it's like every single year I'm still learning more about them, and it's like I've seen you like maybe at some points more times than you've seen your family, especially if you're like on a preseason trip and you're seeing them every single day. And I'm like, I'm still learning stuff about you. So it's
Yeah.
definitely a process, and I'm always like, granted, it's a little bit different because I get to work with the team, so I see them a bit more often than maybe if I was outside media. But my thing is like, I want a player to see me around the training facility like 5 to 10 times
Yeah.
before I go to them and say,
Mhm.
"Hey, will you do an interview with me?" Because I don't want them to see me and be like, "Ugh, what the heck do you want? I know you're going to want an interview. Like, what do you want?" And that would be the absolute worst thing.
Yes, and that does happen. I'm sure it happened to me at some point, you know? So, yes, sometimes kind of to what you just said, they would see me and they would, like, hide, and I'm like, "No, no, where are you going?" I'm like, "No, no, don't do that to me." So now, you bring up a very good point, like, our offices are in the same facility where the team trains. I could, theoretically speaking, not be downstairs in training. I could stay in my office, in my space, and get my stuff done, but I think it's so important that they see you. They see that you're there. Today at training, we're obviously here in Portugal for our preseason. It's raining. Today it's been raining all day. And we went to training and one of the coaches says to me, "Oh, you're here." And I'm like, "Of course I'm here." Like, where would I be? He's like, "It's just raining really bad." And I go, "I know. I'm still here. I got it." He was like jokingly saying it.
Yeah.
But it's kind of like, no, like they're there, I'm there. Like I'm not going to
Yeah.
just leave them there and like, oh, it's raining, let me not go outside and step foot in the rain. I'm not gonna do that. I'm not gonna do that.
I Yeah, no, no, no. It's like you're part of the team, and I like when coaches, like we have the coaching staff. I've definitely seen it grown over the years with as we get more and more coaches. But it's like when they consider people like you and I who aren't part of the coaching staff and who aren't a player, like still part of the team, because that makes a difference. So I'm sure that coach will be like, okay, like I know that she is part of the team. She's around, rain or shine, literally.
Yes,
She is
I will
going
be
to be
there.
there.
I'm like, I will be there. But yeah, it definitely helps for them, for the guys to see you every day because it feels like you're in this with them in a weird way.
Yeah.
Um, so that's a big one, I feel.
I don't want to hold you up too long. Listen, Delmy right now is in Portugal. It's like, what are we hitting? It's like 10 p.m. where she is right now.
Not horrible. You're good.
By that time over here, I'm in my pajamas. I'm on the couch with my cat. Like, I am out. This game that's called We're Not Really Strangers. I found this in the basement of my parents' house when I
No,
went over there to get my podcasting mic. I don't know if you've ever played. So
no.
I'm only gonna pick out 3. I picked out 3 already that I really like, that I think would be great for you.
I
So I'm gonna
love
hit you with these 2
games.
questions, and then we'll wrap it up. What has been your happiest memory this past year?
Oh, my happiest memory this past year. Professionally, are we talking about just in general? What are we, how?
W let's talk well, whatever you man, you're not supposed to hit me back with the question.
I'm like, this is too vague. How specific do we want to get?
If you have let's do professional. If
Okay.
you have a personal one, I would love to hear it as well.
Okay. I mean, professionally, I think that's easy. For me, it was getting this job. So I came in April of last year. So that's definitely a highlight. And that's kind of what, laid out the rest of the year for me. And now I'm in Portugal. So how can I hate it?
I would not hate that at all. I think that's
Exactly.
so great. Alright, second one. What ooh, I was debating whether or not to ask this because this could be a long conversation.
Gosh.
So, alright, here we go. What are you more afraid of, failure or success, and why?
Oh, that's a oh, you're
That's
you're
a
you're
deep
trying to
that's a
get deep in there now.
I know. I said, "Let's wrap this up," and then I brought this question that could
Yeah.
spur on, like, a 2-hour conversation.
Actually, this isn't that difficult for me. I think 2 years ago, I would have said failure. I think at this point in my life, I've embraced the fact that failure is kind of what ultimately brings you to where you want to be. And, as roller coaster of a ride as that can be sometimes, I do firmly believe it all ends the way it's supposed to end.
Yeah.
So if I'm picking between failure and success now, I would say maybe success. And the only reason why I say that is because I have major ambitions, right? Like I'm constantly, like I said, I've got a list of ideas that I'm constantly working and things I want to do. And with this club, like, where I see myself a couple years from now and that kind of thing. And I think for me, when I think about success, I guess I connect that to I hope that no matter where my path takes me, that I always care this much and I always feel this much and I always feel the passion that I feel for it now. And I mean, all these years have gone by and I very much still feel that same way. But it's like something that you see sometimes what success can do to other people.
Yes.
And
Yes.
yeah, you just kind of hope that's never how you turn out to be.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I was gonna say. Because like, when I picked this question now, like, I hadn't given it much thought, but then as you're talking, it's like, at least failure, you keep failing, and it's like, "Okay, well, at least you're trying," but then
Mhm.
success, if sometimes when you reach your goals, you're like, "Okay, I reached it, like, I'm good to go," and it's
Yeah,
like, "No, no, 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 you still got other
yeah,
stuff that you wanna achieve in life," so, like, just because you got one thing or just because you started getting part of your goal, like, don't stop
yeah,
now, and I think that then it can be a bit scary because then you get a little bit complacent where
yes.
you are, and it's like, enjoy where you are, but, like, don't maybe settle, I guess would be the word, don't settle.
Absolutely. I agree with that. You have to constantly just push yourself to more.
Yeah,
If you don't push
yeah,
yourself, you will end up in the same spot. And that's the last thing I want. There's like I said,
and
there's so
that's
many, yeah, there's so many things that I want to do and I want to accomplish. And I know that if I ever get to that point of complacency, that's not a place that I want to be in. And I also feel like that would just be like a disservice to myself. Like you don't want
yes.
to work so hard your entire life in your career to get to a point and just be like, okay, I'm good. Let's just ride
And
that wave out. Yeah, I don't ever want to be that person. Um, So yeah, I'd pick success.
Love it. Love it. All right, last one. What would your younger self not believe about your life today?
Wow, that's a handful. Well,
You
because
got another 3 hours to go?
I know, right? I took a nap earlier, so I'm pretty awake right now. um, Oh, yeah, that's hard because I feel like my whole life feels kind of like that sometimes. It really does. Like, I think about, like I mentioned earlier, right? Like, I have such vivid memories of my dad taking myself, my younger brother. We'd go down to the Rose Bowl and watch the LA Galaxy play. We'd come out, we'd get those cheap $5 t shirts from like the vendors outside, Like, I have such vivid memories of loving sports and growing up with sports as a kid that thinking, wow, like I remember having a point with the Galaxy where I just kind of looked around the pitch and realized, wow, like I would have never thought that it would be like a full circle moment. I got to take my dad to a game, which was so special. Um, and even like till this day, the fact that I'm in this position, that I'm in Portugal, that I'm working with an amazing group of guys that literally I could not have asked for a better team. Um, and the fact that I love it's hard to just pinpoint one thing. I look at my entire career as a wow, like I I I've been able to do this, and it makes me feel very proud because I've worked very hard. And I don't think, especially women, I just don't think that we ever give ourselves enough credit.
Oh, 100% not.
Never. Like, we just don't cheerlead ourselves as much as we should. But when you really take a moment and take a step back, even you with your career, like you mentioned, we follow each other for so long, and it's
Yeah.
been so beautiful and amazing to see what you've done in DC and how you've grown all of the content on that end. It's just so cool to see like what women can accomplish in this industry and in this field. And I think it's important to take a moment once in a while and just really admire and appreciate how much you've done and where you are. But that's hard because everything as a whole is my honest
It's so
answer.
it's so difficult because, like, I wanna give myself, like, "Listen, like, you are like, imagine where like, look at where you are right now, like, did you even think that you'd be here?" And it's like, "No, I didn't." But then it's like, well, I don't wanna, like, say that out loud to people and feel too cocky, or, like, when people ask what I do, I just blow it off, and I'm like, "Yeah, I just the team reporter for DC, I interview players and coaches." And then, like, I just let it trail off, and it's like, "No,
No,
talk about what you've done because it's incredible." And it's like
yeah.
it's so easy to go to these to all the women and say, "Hey, look at all your success," and to speak about other people. It's so easy for me to say, "Guys, listen to what Delmy does. Like, she's freaking incredible. She does a bomb ass job." I might have to bleep myself out there. But then I talk about myself, and it's like I can't do the same thing. So
No, you
I hope
can't.
that
You can't.
I know.
And I think
I
also
hope.
that shows, I feel like that shows other girls, right? And other young girls that are aspiring to do all of this. It shows them that it is okay to be in this industry and to own your position and to say, I do a hell of a job here and I deserve where I am. I deserve this promotion. I deserve this, whatever it is. I think it's just so important to talk about that because there aren't enough people that just openly and proudly speak of their work. And I think we are so conditioned to feel, well, I'm going to come out as like, overconfident or cocky or this or
Yes.
that. But I feel like that's more of like what society has kind of put in our heads. So you praise yourself.
Thank you.
Praise
Thank
yourself.
you. I'm gonna end it on that because I think, like, if men are doing it, women can do it too. Talk about your successes. If there's only one thing that you take from this entire thing, celebrate yourself the same way that you can celebrate all the other incredible women around you.